What is something that you memorized years ago and can still recite for no reason? I'll start.
Life's not fair, is it? You see, I shall never be king. And you'll never see the light of another day. Adieu. Didn't your mother ever tell you not to play with your food? What do you want? I'm here to announce the King Mufasa's on his way, so you better have a good excuse for missing the ceremony this morning. Oh, look now, Zazu, you've made me lose my lunch. Ha! You'll lose more than that when the king gets through with you. He's as mad as a hippo with a hernia. Ooh, I quiver with fear. I've been looking for the video, but I can't seem to find it. But it raised a certain point that I thought was very interesting. And so I'm going to share it, but excuse my appearance. My entire family is pretty sick right now. I'm taking care of my family, and obviously I'm consuming more TikTok today. So the creator, I really tried to find it, but the creator was talking about how if we're all glued to our own individual algorithms, kind of like our own little personal echo chambers, then someone not interested in Palestine wouldn't see any Palestinian content and not be exposed to what Palestinians are actually like. And it makes perfect sense. And I really wanted to just add to the conversation, not to ruffle feathers, but to just sort of shed light on what I have seen. So a long time ago, I knew a Muslim family and I tried to befriend them on Facebook. But when I researched their names, I couldn't find them. They literally didn't exist. So the next time I see her, I'm telling her, oh, I couldn't find you. Can you please write it down? Show me your Facebook. And so she showed me her Facebook. And I still was not able to find her when I got home. I eventually was able to find her through a Google search, I think, just it was on a separate search engine and not logged into my account. Ultimately, I was not able to find her on my own account though, and it kind of drove a wedge in our relationship because it made it look like I wasn't friending her on Facebook, but I literally would just go home and I couldn't find her. At the time, I wasn't really sure how to navigate that conversation, and I mean, I don't know her now today, but we became very close. I became very close with her family. So I don't know, do with that information what you will, but it's really something to think about. Red flags in friendships or reasons that you shouldn't feel guilty or bad about walking away or distancing yourself from a relationship or friendship coming from a social butterfly. And obviously, the disclaimer is I know I'm not perfect. Becoming self aware as you get older can be absolutely mortifying, and I feel badly and wish I could change the way I've treated people before in the past. So, obviously, I am not perfect. Let's do it on my 10 fingers, shall we? Number one is pretty obvious. It's if they have to be drinking or high to hang out with you. If you always have to be intoxicated in some way and there is no way to have or keep a conversation or know what to do, if it's like awkward, if you're not, using substances, then obviously that's a red flag and it will manifest as a bigger problem in the future down the line. Doesn't mean that you can't have fun. This is different, and I think that those who know that it doesn't mean that drinking is bad or hanging out and kicking back with them is bad. This is a very distinct type of friendship to where it's like every time, and it has to be that way, and when you're not, it's like not a good time. Yeah. Number two, if there's no reciprocity in the relationship. I know there's a lot of people talking about this subject right now, but coming from someone like me, I used to just be big and doughy eyed and open, and I've had a lot of friends, and I just like to give and be a part of something, and it's very easy to overgive sometimes for people like me. And it can just be a point where if you give too much, you start to resent people, even though they didn't ask. So it's good to gauge, like, if there is equal reciprocity, it's not always going to be like that every single time. Like, you don't have to nitpick down to the text message, but it's pretty obvious, and you know that if you start to feel that resentment, that it's happening, that if you are giving so much more and it's more all about them, obviously that's a red flag and it might be time to distance yourself. Number three, if you realize that you're just a project for them, this one can be tricky to figure out because a lot of the time people love to make friends and learn from each other and take things that they learn from each other, and it can be a really beautiful thing. Like, friends sometimes start to dress alike or speak alike. What I'm talking about is if they have put you kind of under their wing as a project, to where there's always like a weird power dynamic, or they always have to kind of, it turns into something where they're talking down to you. I have been on both sides of this one, because I believe people really try to help, but after a while, I think if we're really talking about real, true friends, there is an equality there, and there's an admiration and love for who you are as a person that does not need to change for them to love you, obviously. Number 4 is if you bring up a concern with them and they dismiss it as just a you problem. Now, I can get more specific on this, and I have an example. So one time I reached out to a friend of mine, and I had been feeling some passive aggression from her toward me, and silent treatment and stuff like that. And so I asked her, and I said I was feeling this from her, and I let her know that for me, it's easier to have direct communication, and so if there's a problem, or if she's annoyed of me for some reason, that we could totally talk about it so that we could fix it. But to not communicate about it and to leave me wondering triggers my stuff and the problems that I have, where I could spiral mentally. And so I just wanted to talk to her about it, and her response wasn't mean or anything. It was just very dismissive, as, well, that's kind of a you problem, and not saying that she had any problem with me or anything else. It was just kind of like, that's a you problem. This at first doesn't seem like an issue, but with a lot of other friends I have, bringing this up could be awkward, but ultimately you have a conversation about it and you get past it. Because of the type of attitude that she had, there was no conversation, and we couldn't get past it, to the point where, I just don't feel safe in that relationship if we can never talk about how we're different and how we communicate. And because that specific thing stresses me out so much and causes me to worry and spiral, it just feels like that friend is not so much looking after my well-being the way that I would want, if that makes sense. Of course, gauge this with how you are. Everyone's communication style is different. Everybody feels differently from friendships, but that was a conversation to where I really could tell, and it's not the first time, you can just tell if someone cares about how you're feeling. And for me, I don't think it's a safe relationship if people can't be honest and upfront and straightforward with you about what's going on. You have to be able to communicate for safety in a relationship, for emotional safety, and I think that's important for me in a friendship. It might not be important for other people in a friendship, but for me to give my time to a person and feel safe and have that loyalty, since I do tend to have very long-term friends, I really make them a part of my life and I try to show up for them. I really need to feel that safety and that ability to be honest with each other. And if you can't just speak, well, then nothing can get done. You can't really have any true intimacy with them. Brings me to number 5. If you can't be silly with them, if you can't have fun and joke around, and everything has to be so serious, and you have to kind of have your corporate, like, presidential voice all the time because you're so worried about every little thing you might say hurting your reputation, then obviously there's a problem there. I mean, chances are, if you feel that way, you're worried about them gossiping about you, or you're concerned that your opinions aren't safe with them. Number 6, if they're in competition with you, I don't even think I need to elaborate on that one. It's a big problem. You don't want any contempt coming at you from the people who are supposed to love you and have your back. Number 7, and this is a big one in my opinion, probably the biggest one, if there is any red flag to run away from. If someone says that they didn't like you when they first met you, or that they thought that you were different when they first met you, like you're not who they thought that you were going to be. I've had 2 friendships like this, and both of those friendships were the worst friendships that I believe I've ever had. Those friendships were full of contempt, full of smear campaigns, full of drama, full of just pain, suffering, and ultimately it's an enemy who wants to take you down. Maybe not so consciously, but yeah. First of all, why would you say that to me? I mean, why did you feel it was important for me to know that you didn't like me? That kind of says a lot about whatever it was of the fantasy that you had of me in your mind before we met. It says a lot about what they might think about just how they judge people right away, like what their idea I think that to be in a world of fantasy about you, just like in a romantic relationship can be dangerous in a friendship. If they believed a certain thing about me and it wasn't positive, or I wasn't who they thought that I was going to be, that just says a lot about the world that they have going on within them. And I wish I knew how to explain it better, but both those friendships were so bad. And the most painful friendships I've had were friends who told me that, and those conversations weren't constructive or anything. They didn't say that there was some flaw that they really thought I had to change, like not some real character thing. It was just they had an idea of me, and yeah, it just didn't turn out well. I don't know if you guys have any. I know that people have stories on stuff like this. Please put that in the comments, or maybe when I have more time, I can actually articulate this in another video. That brings me to the next one, which is kind of related. Anyone who has any racial bias, and I know about it, and this is not to say that there are people working on themselves. This doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad person. We all have our little issues that we're working through. But for me personally, because I've had so many painful interactions because of pre-existing racial issues, and I have a lot of friends who that's not even an issue in our friendship. I just don't want to go anywhere near it because I am just too emotionally spent. And I say it is related to the other thing because, you know, when someone is judging you before they really know you that well, they're looking at you, and it could be based on a lot of different factors. They could be judging you on race, on how beautiful you are, or on a whole number of things, on what they perceive that you have or don't have, what they perceive that you can give them, stuff like that, where people have issues like that. I think it says a lot about the types of trials you might go through in that friendship, for which I am completely over. I'm gonna have to do a part 2 as I am out of time. Yeah. The important thing to know is it's okay to grieve. It's okay to grieve friendships that didn't work out, and it's okay that if you love them, friendship red flags, or when it's time to distance yourself from a relationship or say goodbye. Part 2 coming from a social butterfly. So I think I just left off talking about being okay to grieve these friendships. It is absolutely okay for you to miss these people, to grieve them, to feel fondly of them, and to even still love them. And if you have the type of relationship, you can tell them how much you appreciate what you learned from them, or at least honor them whenever it is you talk about them. You can do what you can do, and if you're not speaking to them anymore, there are ways to find peace with it yourself, and it doesn't mean just hating their guts because they're not in your life anymore. You can say thank you for being in my life and goodbye, and you could cry about it. You can grieve it. I just wanted to put it out there because I think that, you know, it's very easy to just jump right to hatred because of what you've lost in saying goodbye to people. And I absolutely do get so sad when it's like, oh man, I really like this person, but you know, it crosses the boundaries I've created for myself, so I can't be close with you. And it's like, dang it, I really like them, but you know, it's fine. It's okay, you know, you can have acquaintances. People need a lot of different types of relationships in their life, and you can live in the moment without having them needing to be in your close inner circle. So for the last 2, number 9 would be if you never can meet their other friends, or if when you do meet their other friends, they act weird or you get a strange vibe. And I'm not talking about being nervous about meeting new people. I'm saying like you're talking to them and there is a weird vibe. There's looks going on. Obvious indicator that that friend talks some shit about you, and there's a reason that they keep you separate, because maybe they live maybe some people just live different lives with different people, and you challenge the persona that they have put out to their other friends, or whatever, they're just talking bad about you. It's obvious that a lot of words have been said already. I'm sure that people have stories about that. Please do write in the comments to give an example. And the last one is if they are a part of a multi-level media company thing. I already have weird boundaries around having friends that are from work, just because there's less potential for what your friendship can really become and how close you can actually be when it's work related. But MLMs are different, and it can be really sinister. And I do have a good example of this, a couple of examples, and I think that I do need to share it. So please listen, really, seriously. So when I was younger, I had a close relationship with my youth pastor's wife. She was the leader of my Bible studies. We got close. I ended up babysitting for her and all this stuff. And also, she also ripped me off when I babysat her for her. She gave me the impression I was going to get paid, and she didn't pay me, but that's another story for another time. Pretty much, I thought she could do no wrong. I thought that she had the greatest intentions because of her position in my life. And so when, we grew older, people moved away, she reaches out to me, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like, she still cares. Like, I thought we had something real. So we get on the phone and we're talking, and here I am thinking that she's checking in on how I'm doing, and because I had just become a mother. I thought that she really cared, but really that phone call was to pull me into whatever multi-level media company that she had. And I remembered the feeling where my stomach just dropped, and it just felt so yucky, and it just felt so like, almost like, but you're gonna use me? Like she didn't really care. It was just so gross and yucky. That's one example. And another example is a friend I had. I bring this up because sometimes people in your life do not join multi-level media companies, MLMs, until like after you've known them for a while, because those companies encourage those people to find their customers in the people who are already in their lives. That's why it's so messed up. I remember I went to Disneyland with a friend I'd had for a while, who at the time I considered my best friend. And she spent the whole time, her and her husband spent the whole time trying to convince me to join their MLM. And at the time, I didn't think anything of it. I was more concerned for them and whether or not they were gonna be safe in that situation. But down the line, it spoke volumes to the type of friendship that I had with her. I was really mistreated in that friendship. Just the fact that she was willing to recruit me and use me for that scheme and not think about me and my well-being and whether or not I actually needed that product. It's just an experience that I don't know. Anyone who has been through that experience knows what I'm talking about how dirty and disgusting and used you feel when you have a friend who does that, because friendship is sacred and relationships are sacred, and I just feel that there's a line that you don't cross. And so I ignored that red flag early on, and there were many instances in that relationship where I was used by her and basically in the end discarded by her. So I just think that anytime someone is a part of an MLM and they're willing to go there, taking it outside of there and bringing it into your friendship, and I think that there's something wrong with someone who is willing to monetize a relationship with you. And I do think that I can really speak on this. I was born in North Hollywood, grew up in freaking Valencia, which is where all the movie people in Hollywood tend to live, the suburban people. And, like Taylor Lautner and what's her name? Friggin' Ashley Tisdale went to the high school I went to. And the culture of this whole area, even my high school, the culture around me is so like, everyone is so ready to use you, or everyone is so ready to discard you if you don't have monetary value, if you have nothing of this greater importance to give them. So I guess growing up out here has really grown my distaste, and also my radar. I can really tell when someone is just there to use you, when someone is just there to climb the ladder, and when someone is just there for what you have to bring to the table outside of what a relationship is really meant to give you. When it comes to reciprocity, when it's shallow and vapid, that's obviously a red flag. What are some of your red flags? Let us all know. Help us all out. Thanks. Talk to you guys next time.
Oh man, I'm so sorry. That really sucks. And it's really interesting because just today or yesterday, I saw someone saying that it's a red flag if someone's husband or boyfriend acts weird. I think that tracks, but I don't think it's always the case, especially because I just know a few sweet, kind of just awkward guys who don't really know how to talk to their spouse's friends or whatever. But I think that there's something valid about it. But anyway, this actually reminds me of a story I was gonna say in the last video but forgot. So, on a little bit of a different note, but still the same point, I went to a wedding of a friend from high school. And you know how high school friendships can kind of be. I still cherish the friendships I had in high school. I still remember all the memories with fondness, even if I'm not still friends with everybody. But it's interesting the way that, you can see a lot of these problems early on, and things can become patterns with people or just within the context of when you met someone. So, whereas I love this person so much, it was inevitable that we were going to drift apart. So, anyway, this high school friend was always someone who we had a culture of talking about each other to each other, just a lot of like triangulation within that friend group, a lot of misunderstandings, but truly, generally, everyone had a big heart and there was still a lot of love for each other in that group, but super toxic and drama central. So, anyway, um, I go to this friend's wedding and I'm around all these people. A lot of those people, it's just so uncomfortable. And I've noticed too that one reason to really hold yourself to keeping your boundaries is there is a reason that you should or shouldn't be around certain people. Like, if people make you feel like you don't belong, then I say now, even though I wouldn't have said this when I was a kid, like, then I don't belong there. Because at the end of the day, if people expect, it's just so weird. Have you ever noticed that if people expect you to be a certain way or they think a certain way about you and it's uncomfortable, you start to act so weird? So it's like, I don't know what person I became when I re entered that space. Like, what? Like, 12 years later after high school, seeing all these people, and then, like, suddenly I am just acting so weird and I got so drunk and I didn't even realize it. And so I was weird and drunk and so uncomfortable. It was terrible. But it helped me have some closure about like feeling more confident about like, yeah, I know where I belong. I know the people I want to be around. And even if I want people to like me, at the end of the day, it is mutual because you can normally see and feel these red flags in such a small way. And just because you grow apart doesn't mean that that friendship had to be a bad friendship, but it would be a bad friendship if I had it now. But it's exactly what we all needed at that point in time. And it taught us lessons we needed to know at that point in time. But it was painful because it was evident that that friend had made me believe that we were a lot closer than we really were, and she gossiped about me and made it look like we weren't as close as we truly were. And that was just like a reality check for me. And the cold hard truth is that if I remember it correctly, I pushed her away a lot because I didn't want to be in groups who gossiped as much. And so I had noticed that we would bring these characteristics out more in each other. And I was already distancing myself from them much earlier than they distanced themselves from me. And at the end of the day, when you look back, I also talked my fair bit of shit. And so we all have a place in that system. Yeah, sometimes. And I'm not saying that this is everyone's fault, but it's like I'm glad I'm past the anger phase or the super hurt phase because I get it. I get it now. And I still love all of them.